Welcome back to Let's Play Metroid 2 Return of Samus for the Super Game Boy. Last time we finished up Phase 2 and got a head start on Phase 3, got the Varia suit, and we're gonna continue onwards into this little temple here because we can find a few optional upgrades. And we're gonna make sure to get our dirty paws on each and every one of them. And yes, I do notice that missile expansion hiding off in that corner there, but we'll worry about that one later. For now, let's go ahead and get a new beam upgrade. Much like Metroid 1, beams do not stack at all. And also like Metroid 1, you do need ice shots, or the ice beam rather, to go through the final area of the game. Coincident much? So, yeah. That being said, though, you have a bigger stretch of game to go through before you have to even worry about that said ordeal. So, don't feel too shy to go out of your way and grab these good beam upgrades, because these feel like they're definitely worth your time. So, much like Metroid 1, the wave beam returns in its usual fashion, and it shoots through the walls as it did in the original Metroid. So, not much has changed here. And for those, all two of you wondering what the Varia suit does in this game, it simply does damage reduction like it did in the original Metroid. So we don't have situations where it protects us from heat damage just yet. And you might have also noticed earlier that we went through water as well. Unlike Metroid 1, where you clearly went through acid and lava and it slowed down your movement, in this game, water doesn't really do anything to you. This game doesn't quite introduce the gravity suit yet to kind of help with that ordeal of being slowed down within water and what have you. But yeah, in this game you kind of just walk into water all willy-nilly without any worry for like any impeded movement whatsoever. Which makes me kind of wonder what the point of putting water in this game was to begin with. But you know what? I'm just gonna kind of blame it on the fact that they didn't think of the idea to like think of water restrictions just yet. And then they probably thought back to Metroid 1 and realized, oh hey, lava and acid impedes your movement. Let's do the same for water. Why not? That's at least what I'm assuming anyway. So, with that being said, we got the high jump boots. I don't think it's an upgrade you really need in this game since you have the spider ball, but it definitely makes navigating this whole game a bit more comfortable. Which kind of makes me wonder why they decided to give you the spider ball first before giving you the high jump boots. I don't know, doesn't that seem kind of counterproductive? I don't know, maybe they might change that in Samus Returns, but who knows? I'll definitely be sure to give an impression of that game once that title comes out, because I am so pumped for Samus Returns. Unlike any other Metroid game. And for those wondering, yes, I did play AM2R. I know what that game is like. Hell, I even did a playthrough of it on YouTube not long ago, but I kind of regret the way I went through it, because I was kind of a dingus and went through it using Camtasia, and as a result, it kind of gave me the sort of quality that I didn't really want looking at it in the long run. So at some point or another, I'm definitely going to be redoing that whole playthrough, but not scrapping the old one entirely, since that was a blind playthrough after all. So for those wondering if I'm going to be 100%ing AM2R at any point in the future, I will definitely be sure to do that. I'm just not going to be tackling AM2R until like every other Metroid game besides Samus Returns, because, well, I'm kind of going into all of these games in chronological release date order, much like, say, Clement did with his Mega Man and Sonic LPs. So, yeah, that's just the kind of guy I am. Otherwise, I'd probably skip this game altogether and move into Zero Mission instead, as opposed to like tackling Super Metroid and Fusion first, because Zero Mission actually is my favorite 2D Metroid game. But we'll save that discussion for when we start playing Zero Mission, because I don't want to get too ahead of myself. All right, so I know that missile expansion is there, but I'm going to save that for last. So instead, what I'm going to be doing is, much like Phase 2, there is an off-beaten path that leads into this whole separate area with all these other different Metroids. So we're going to be taking care of that, and then we'll get that missile expansion on our way out. It's all for the sake of convenience. And yeah, as you can tell, a lot of these hallways here look remarkably similar to the ones we saw in Phase 2, but again, it just comes off more as lazy than inconvenient, if anything else, really, because it's kind of, a linear path to where the Metroids are. It's not too confusing. Uh, it's not the same bullshit you encountered in Norfair, where there were so many, like, vertical hallways where you had to, like, bomb, like, these really obscure off-beaten paths open before you can, like, really find these other open areas for, like, expansions and upgrades. Like, to this day, even after this Let's Play I did of Metroid 1, I still can't, map out the entirety of Norfair in my head. It's just that badly designed. But anywho, that thing we just fought was the next evolutionary form of the Metroid we had fought in the last few areas, which is the Gamma Metroid. The Metroids do increasingly get stronger as you progress through the game. That one, as opposed to the Alpha Metroid, which takes 5 missiles to kill, the Gamma Metroid actually takes 10. And unlike the Alpha Metroid, where you can hit it wherever you want, the Gamma Metroids have a specific weak spot where you have to hit them from the front or the back, otherwise you're not going to be doing any damage to the creature. So you definitely want to aim your shots pretty precisely when fighting these things, and you don't want to get too reckless either. Is it safe to say I like the way the Metroids are designed in this game over AM2R? Like, I know they're not anything worth writing home about. It's probably the only thing I'm going to give credit to Metroid 2 over, AM2R, but, like, I never did like how super sporadic, like, the Gamma and Alpha Metroid movement was in AM2R. And with them being a little bit slower, I guess, it makes them a lot less annoying to fight, I suppose. That was, like, my only problem with AM2R as a whole. I didn't like fighting some of the Metroids, like, at all. The Omega Metroids I didn't mind too much, but I didn't like how they were so fast and they had, like, these super precise weak points that it just made, like, consistent, like, enemy strategy, like, completely obligatory, because it never felt like there was a point in time where you could study its movement correctly to where you can hit it at the right time. Kind of like a Mega Man Robot Master, for example. And yes, I did take quite the beating from that Gamma Metroid, but it wasn't too big of an ordeal because there was an energy recharge in the next room. Yeah, that's another thing this game does way better than Metroid 1. This game features recharge stations, but unlike, later games like Super Metroid and Fusion and Zero Mission, where they had recharge stations in rooms, in this game, you have individual, like, energy charges and missile batteries you can go out of your way and find. These things are permanent, so you can go back to these things and fill up whenever you'd like. And through phases 2 through 7, you have at least one energy recharge and missile battery you can go out of your way and find. So, In other words, you don't have to grind near as heavily as you did in Metroid 1. That is to say, however, the game doesn't this entirely. Hell, when you get to Phase 8, you have to use a lot of missiles to take down the Omega Metroids in that sector, and the game kind of has it designed to where you don't find any missile batteries in it, but yet like the Omega Metroids take so much like missiles to kill. You have to at least like be sure you have plenty of missiles on hand and to make sure you don't get too reckless with them either, otherwise you're going to be in big doo-doo. But yeah, much like I'm promised, I'm going to go out of my way and get that missile expansion before moving onwards. I guess that's another criticism you can like pitch against Metroid 2 as well, is that a lot of the areas can definitely feel samey in some way, shape, or form. Like, the general idea of each layout you go to is that you have, like, one big Chozo temple in the middle of all of it, while you have, like, the Metroids and off-beaten paths. And, I don't know. I guess that can kind of feel super samey to some people and a bit repetitive. But I think the layouts are varied and interesting enough with its variety and enemy like placement and encounters that it never really popped up as a huge issue to me, but I can see that being a valid criticism against the game. I forget if I mentioned this in the last video, but a lot of people, including Game Explain, which I watched recently when they did a video playthrough and thought slash impression like analogy of the new Metroid game coming out. They had mentioned in that video specifically that oh shit! I forgot one upgrade. Crap. They mentioned in that video that there's no way of telling how many Metroids are left within a region before you can move on to another. And that's not quite true, but I don't exactly like the idea of how they handle this either. You see, the way you can tell how many Metroids are left within each area is actually through pausing. You pause, and the Metroid icon changes to an L, which stands for left, and the number by it stands for how many Metroids are left within a region. And that's the closest thing you're going to get to a Metroid radar in this game. Again, I would have liked if they had like another method of showing you how many Metroids were left within a region, but the option's there. It doesn't come off as super obvious, I suppose. It doesn't come off super clearly like you'd expect it to be, but yeah, the Metroid count for each area, it's certainly there. Just not through the most convenient method. Alright, I'm back, and here we are on top of the Chozo Temple structure. You just simply venture onto the top of this thing, and you keep going until you find this pit. You want to drop into this, and within it, you'll find the closest thing you'll get to a boss battle within this game, as opposed to the Metroids, and that is Arachnus. Yeah, Arachnus didn't make his debut in Fusion, as a lot of people might expect. No, he was clearly in this game. He's just not a very remarkable boss fight. All you have to really do to him is that whenever he comes out of ball form, you shoot him down with morph ball bombs, and then he dies. And with that, we get the spring ball. And with the spring ball, we can now jump and morph ball, which is really nice, actually. because in Super Metroid and Metroid 2, um, you actually have the same jump height, I believe, as, you know, the jump height you would normally have not being in Morph Ball, you know? Which is something I thought I'd bring mention to because they actually kind of nerfed the Spring Ball a bit in the Zero Mission and Fusion, and I could never really understand why or what their line of reasoning was behind all of that, but yeah. Something I never really did mention though, that I kind of like the attention of detail that they gave to the Morph Ball 2 for though, is that unlike any other 2D Metroid game I've played, and it's only in Metroid 2 for whatever reason, is that for not having the Spring Ball or the Spring Ball or having the Varia suit or having the Varia suit, the Morph Ball has all of these unique animations and sprites for it. I don't know why they went out of their way to do this and why they cut it out in like later installments, but I always thought that was kind of cool, you know? Because you might have think you might think you've seen all of the morph ball animations, but there's a separate one for the spring ball combined with the power suit morph ball, and not too many people would see that. But yeah, it's certainly there, and I don't really know what convinced them to do this. I say the 2D Metroid games though because they revisited this in Metroid Prime and onwards, where they gave the Spider Ball its own unique model, as opposed to just keeping it the same like it was in the other 2D games past Metroid 2, you know. Anywho, with that being said, we're heading into the biggest area in the game, which is Area 4, and it's inevitably the most confusing part of the whole game. It's very easy to get lost here. And I was certainly stuck here for the longest time because of how spread apart the Metroid locations are, as well as like all the different upgrades you can get within this area. So hopefully my playthrough of this area does it justice. But to make things a bit less confusing, as I had mentioned before, they keep the vast majority of Metroid separate from like the upgrades in each area. So what I'm going to be doing with this area is that I'll be going to where the upgrades are first and beating the Metroids within those confined spaces, and then I'm going to go to the latter half of the area and take care of the Metroids, the vast majority of them there, because this is a very big area. Like 10 Metroids within one area is nothing to scoff at all. I'll never know why they gave these enemies, like, separate enemy sprites, even though the behavior is exactly the same as the ones from Phase 2 earlier, but I digress. Anywho, come down here, and you'll find a missile battery that's pretty easy to locate. And yeah, 3 parts in, and we already have 170 missiles. We'll be maxed out before you know it. And if you don't like how slow the Spider Ball here is, we're about to get an upgrade that alleviates that entirely. In fact, it makes the Spider Ball completely pointless. Again, I kind of wish they spaced out the mobility options a bit further ahead. Because, like, you get the Spider Ball in Phase 2, but yet you get the Space Jump in Phase 4, which isn't that far off from the Spider Ball. So it quickly makes the Spider Ball, like, really useless, you know, outside of a few niche situations that makes platforming more or less comfortable in a few situations, but that's just me. I don't know about you guys. So shoot this stand open, and we'll find another missile tank. And over here is the save station and our stopping point. So next time on Let's Play Metroid 2 Return of Samus, we're going to explore Phase 4 and hopefully make it into Phase 5. So thank you guys for watching and see you guys then.